to my kitchen today. I'm so glad you joined me. Today, I just got off the phone with a girlfriend who called me about her parents. What a dilemma when your parents get older and they start needing care. I don't know if that's you or not, but join me as we talk about those things that are going to happen to every single one of us. I'm very pleased today to have as my guest Carolyn Michaelis Moe. Carolyn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, Hazel, it's so good to be here with you. It's been a long time since we've worked together at Loma Linda Home Care.
Yes.
And I'm a nurse. I have a bachelor's in nursing, a master's in business. And I've been in various businesses over my life too, but I've mostly enjoyed helping people through my skills in nursing. However, what I found out in Loma Linda Home Care was that there were many people who were elderly that really did not have all of the answers to all of the questions, nor could I provide it for them through Loma Linda Home Care or any home care agency. Medicare just didn't pay for the kinds of questions that they had. They wouldn't pay for someone to come in and help them understand their EOBs. They didn't even know what an EOB was. They got this bill from Medicare and thought they should send the government money, and I said, no, don't do that. You'll never get it back.
That's right. Well,
it'll get lost in the system somewhere.
I just got off the phone with Betty, my girlfriend, and she's really worried about her parents.
Yeah.
Now, when are we old? Help me here. I'm feeling a little old, but
therein lies the problem.
For sure.
We are not old. I just want to assure you of that.
Okay.
Because old age is getting later and later. And of course, here at Loma Linda, we are in the blue zone. And so old is 100, 104.
That's right.
Maybe 90, etc. But in the 50s to 70s, what used to be considered old, and I remember when your children were little and they thought that we were very old.
Absolutely.
They hadn't seen nothing yet, as they say.
It's for sure.
Right. And right now, I do not feel old. I'm sure you don't either.
Oh, I don't feel old.
I feel like we're in the prime of our life and being able to do things. And it's a good thing, too, because actually, we are what we call the sandwich generation, otherwise known as, do you feel like you're the bologna in the sandwich?
Or the lettuce, or someone else. I have been in the sandwich, and that is a really uncomfortable place, because for me, sandwich meant, and I don't know what it means for everybody, but for me, sandwich meant I had teenagers in my home, and I had 4 old people, elderlies, that were over 80, and it was very, very difficult.
With concomitant health problems that came along with them.
Absolutely. They were starting to fail and falter. Yeah. I needed to make decisions for them or help my husband, or together. We had to make decisions, and they were not easy decisions. In the other side of the coin, you're trying to be a good wife. You're trying to be a mom to your teenagers.
Soccer team, after-school activities, PTA meetings, going to the school conferences.
Yes.
Oh, and by the way, the doctor's appointment for your mother.
Oh, and by the way, I'm still working. I'm working,
yes.
and a boss would like me to be somewhat productive, yes?
Yes. As a matter of fact, a study was recently done in San Bernardino County about the lost wages, the lost work efficiency of San Bernardino County employees, many of whom are women, because they were fielding phone calls, like you just did, from a friend or from your mother, or the doctor called and wanted to change the prescription or something. And when are they going to do this? So the doctor's going to call after 5 o'clock when you clock out? No. They're going to have to call somebody.
So you're on the phone at work, and then your boss isn't so happy. So what did they find from these women? How much productivity do they felt that they lost?
There were hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, every month that were actually lost productivity from these. This is just one county. Wow. And when you look at that overall of the spread of America, you can really see, well, first of all, women are the primary caregivers. We're the ones that are actually selected, because we are actually the ones that are going to be able to corral the family. I do think that God appointed us to be multitaskers, and it's a good thing.
Don't tell the men out there. But multitasking is only a female attribute. No, men do one thing at a time, and they do them well.
Those pictures you see of some of the female gods with 8 hands, that's actually what all of us should have, because we need that in order to be able to keep track of the 8 different things we're trying to do at the same time.
So then you get that call, and you know, as a young person, I remember not knowing there was a sandwich generation. Most of my family friends I had no elderly grandparents alive anymore. But most of my family friends had a grandma living with them. And grandma seemed to just get passed around to all of the sisters and brothers because there were 5, 7, 9 of them living in a community. What I noticed, Carolyn, when I was working in home care was the fact that here's grandma. She's 85. Her health is deteriorating. She has 2 children. One might live here, and the other lived on the other coast of the United States.
Absolutely.
And both of them have high-powered careers. So who's there to take care of grandma? So tell me a little more about the sandwich generation. You brought
Yeah, I brought this little picture here, and it kind of shows the family tree. And here's this poor woman talking to the doctor here at the bottom of it, and she's saying, oh my goodness, I'm taking care of Grandpa who needs a whole bunch of help, Grandma who just fell and broke the hip, and you see that she's got the crutches there. Oh, did I also mention that my own parents are on 17 medications, and my father has a little bottle problem. Oh, and I have the child that has joined the hippie generation, and the daughter who is pregnant with her second child. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And by the way, my husband's wondering, how are we going to pay all these bills while you're spending money on mother and not actually being able to be as productive in work? There are just so many things that women are pulled apart by, and a lot of it is all family. Yes, there's work also, and you're right, so many people nowadays have careers. And I'm not going to get into the discussion about whether or not we should have careers or we should all stay home and watch the home for it. But in a lot of families, that just doesn't work.
Just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
Who can quit? In this economy right now, my goodness, sometimes it is only mom who actually has the job. So you can't quit.
Right. And you know, the first people to get laid off in the workforce are normally the men.
Yes.
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 So who is going to be working to support the family? Possibly the mother, who still is trying to balance all of this family tree up on her shoulders. And as you can see, she needs to go to the doctor because she is the care provider for so many of them. Yes.
Well, this actually, like I said, just happened to me. And I remember in the middle of it feeling so overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to do. And so if you're out there in this world wondering, I'm going to give you some ideas, but one of the things I remember doing is I went and found a therapist. Just to say, am I coping? Do I have good strategies?
Excellent.
Because I knew, number one, I could not get sick.
Yeah.
I could not get sick.
Yes.
This is not even an option.
Not an option.
And so I said to the therapist, I went in, this is the first time I'd ever really gone to see a counselor, and he said, how are you feeling? And this is how I felt. I felt like on any given day, there was a heavy strap, belt, if you want to call it that, around my waist. Or sometimes it was around my head.
Yes.
And on one side, I'm dragging 3 teenagers, and the other side, 4 olds. And once in a while, my husband even got back there. And so, you know, it was very symbolic where it was, whether it was in my mind that I'm tugging these people or really with my
I tend to feel it on my
them.
shoulders, but I think we all feel it in different places. And the wonderful thing about it is that nowadays you don't have to go that journey alone. There is a field of specialty called geriatric care management. And these are people, I actually am one of them, that are specialists in being able to handle the problems of elderly people. I've had 180 sets of parents.
You've cared for 180 sets of parents, and they become your parents.
Oh my, they certainly do.
You become part of their family.
You become very acquainted with them and very, very close to them, and you feel very sad when things happen to them. So, but this is part of what we do. We help people to be able to cope with all of the things. We are also experts in how to make the medical care system work. Because the medical care system is very fragmented. There are so many different doctors, so many different things that need to be done, so many people that... I have a little lady now, and the doctor yesterday asked me, well, who's her primary care doctor? And I said, well, the doctor that's on 2 months vacation.
There you go.
So who pulls all of the pieces together to be able to help this poor soul, be able to coordinate her care and make sure that everything is happening that should be happening to her? She has multiple health problems. We haven't really gotten to the bottom of the whole thing, but we are working on individual problems, and we actually need someone to pull the whole package together. And the geriatric care manager is the person that does it. In our area, we have a number of good medical facilities in this area, and consequently, a person may go over to Redlands for one portion of their care, may go to Loma Linda for another portion of their care, may go someplace else for a third portion. Who communicates to all three of these doctors in three different entities what actually is going on? There is no mutual sharing that occurs consistently.
Well, you know, in the olden days, and I think we wish it was still that way, we had a doctor.
Yes.
His name was Doc.
Yes.
Primarily, he had no other name, or she had no other name. It was usually he. Doc. And Doc was an important person in our community. And now we are living longer. And we are living longer with multiple disease processes.
And Hazel, one doc can't possibly take care of all of the complexity of problems that we have nowadays. We have to have the specialists. Because a doctor, for example, wound care. You and I both worked at home care. We know about wound care. We know that many physicians do not know about wound care, do not know the basis of wound care, the granulation tissue, etc. And there are specialists now in wound care. In fact, I was just at the wound care doctor yesterday. Special medications, special ways of treating it. I have, this lady has 5 wounds on one leg. All 5 of them have different treatments going on depending upon what stage of healing that particular wound is in.
Well, then when you're elderly and who's watching Grandma? I mean, it isn't just her health we have to worry about. What are some of the other things we're worrying about, Grandma?
Well, do you remember at Christmas time, there's a song that comes out that I just get a biggest kick out of. Grandma got run over by the reindeer.
Yeah, oh yes, I know that one. Isn't that fun?
It is just a riot. But as a geriatric care manager, I look at that song and say, wait a minute, who was supposed to be watching Grandma? Who was supposed to be keeping her from going out in the snow? And when she came over to visit at your house, who was supposed to have picked up her meds and brought them with her so she wouldn't have to go out in the snowbank and get run over by the reindeer? So somebody was not watching Grandma, and that is so important. And many times it's difficult to do that. Watch the 4 teenagers.
Yes.
Make sure the roast is not burning. Make sure that everything else is set up. And oh, by the way, the in-laws did decide to come. And so that adds a whole nother complexity to it. But Grandma didn't get her meds.
Grandma didn't get her meds. And that's, and you know, I know the whole thing with medications, this is a whole nother discussion.
Oh, yes.
But with generics, with being in different groups, then you have to get your medicine at a different pharmacy. Then your medicine doesn't look the same.
Right.
And even I remember my mother-in-law, when she was getting pretty frail, she had a master's degree. This was not an uneducated person. Well-educated person said to me one day, it is so frustrating. Every time I go to the pharmacy, it seems the shape and the colors of my pills change. And I'm just so confused with
Whatever
them.
the pharmacy can get cheapest from the various generic pharmaceutical companies is what they're going to supply you with that time. So if you're on thyroid medication, which is very frequent in our elderly population, it could come from one of 10 different companies.
And they all probably
look just a little bit different. Yes.
And so how do you do that? And I know we shouldn't be filling our pill boxes based on matching, and yet the labels are so hard to read. So
sometimes the labels are. Again, part of the, when we look at problems in the aging population, there are actually 3 major causes for admission to hospitals on the elderly population. One is dehydration, and of course we're in Southern California.
And dehydration just means you haven't had enough to drink lately, and you're over thirsty, and your body is kind of dried out.
Which is why we're drinking our tea, right?
Yes.
Yes, because we don't want to be dried out. But dehydration, particularly in the hot climates, as it gets warmer, it's going to even be more of a problem. But even during the wintertime, your body doesn't feel the thirst as much, so therefore you tend not to drink as much, and that's really not good.
But you got all the heaters going, and those are all drying.
Those are all very, very drying. If you've ever woken up in the morning and your mouth is very dry when you open it, well, you've gotten dehydrated overnight. And you need to refresh that. So it's dehydration, malnutrition.
Oh, malnutrition, that sounds so horrible. You mean Grandma doesn't get enough food?
Well, it's not that there's not food in the cupboard. It's just that I will go into homes when I do my initial evaluation, and I will find 17 packages of cookies out on the counter.
Oh, yes.
And a whole closet full of food, but it's so much easier to just get a cookie. And then I don't feel hungry anymore. But how much nutrition is there in that cookie?
Yeah. And the other part is I think many of our elderly are probably alone.
Yes.
So
making a meal for one person is so difficult.
Do you like to cook for yourself?
No.
I don't like to cook for myself.
There's only 2 of us in our family, and sometimes you will look at each other, what do you want? Well, what do you want? And you're all by yourself, and you just don't feel like making a nutritious, well-balanced meal. So that's the malnutrition we're talking about, not the fact that there's not the access to food in many cases,
Right.
but just that there's no energy to make that. The can opener, a lot of homes don't have automatic can openers, or they
Right.
can't figure out how to work them. And that can opener gets a little hard on that arthritic wrist to be able to open it.
Things.
And the third most common cause of admission is medication mismanagement.
Oh, so much.
Yes, yes.
Medications. And how many pills are most of our elderly people on?
Polypharmacy.
Polypharmacy. I mean, 8, 10, 12
One of the first things that we
prescriptions.
do is go in and we analyze all of the medications the person's on. And interestingly enough, in many houses that we go into, we find not only mom's medications, but we find father that passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, absolutely, because they were very expensive.
They were very expensive.
Throw those
we can't
away.
throw those
you might
away,
need
you
them.
know. Might need them sometime in the
That's right.
future. And I have actually found drugs back to 1995.
Oh, those are good ones. Yeah,
They may have
in
changed
big
into
boxes.
some foreign object by this time. Oh no, they're in the medicine cabinet.
Oh, they're still in the cabinet.
Medicine cabinet.
So, and then I know that our elderly are taking those. Plus, I've noticed with my mom, this is a good one. One day I went to her house and I said, Mom, what are you taking? And she showed me how she took her 5 or 6 prescriptions. She did a very good job. I watched her. I'm the old
Excellent.
nurse, you know.
Yes.
And then I noticed that she's taking Tylenol. She's taking some Tylenol PMs. I go, Ma, you can't sleep.
Yes.
Then she's taking some Tylenol arthritic formula.
Right.
And a different Tylenol during the day. And I go, Ma, you already have a little bit of a kidney issue. You have one. So we have to take care of this little kidney. I know that Tylenol impacts kidneys.
Right.
Why are you taking so much Tylenol? Are you in pain? Oh, no, I don't have any pain.
You shouldn't with that much Tylenol.
Why are you taking this Tylenol? Well, you know, the doctor said when I had that arthritis flare that if I took these, it would go away. And it has.
So we just keep going.
Taking it.
Yes.
And you know, I don't always sleep every night, so I'll just take these.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people don't realize that sleep aid or Tylenol PM or something actually has Tylenol and Benadryl in it.
Right.
And that's the other matter too. Benadryl is one of the medications that is on the Beers list, we call it, BEERS. It's a list of medications that pharmaceutical companies or actually geriatricians have made of medications that really shouldn't be used with elderly clients, and Benadryl is one of them.
Wow.
So they just do not realize that that's what's in a lot of these sleep aids is Benadryl.
No, it's just something PM.
It's just something PM, and so they just take it. It could be Tylenol PM or sometimes aspirin PM or whatever. There's just so many complications of medication. A lot of people don't realize that Pepto-Bismol has the same ingredient in it that aspirin does. So they might be taking their Coumadin, their blood thinner,
and not know.
and then they have a tummy upset, so they take Pepto-Bismol, which actually thins down the blood even more. So that's one of the other things that geriatric care managers can do, and we go in and we will assess all of the medications and we will determine which ones actually are reasonable and which ones aren't, etc., or which ones come from several different doctors, and how many OTCs, over-the-counter medications, are being taken.
Yes.
There's one lady we went into and there was a kitchen cabinet similar to the cabinets back here, full of supplements.
Supplements. Oh, now that's a whole other thing.
Oh,
Those are
yes.
Supplements. Because what do you have time to do when your grandma...
My friend said that this would help me, so I bought 17 of them. And if one's good, 17's better.
You watch television, and they show you all these vitamins that are good.
And you can believe everything that's on television, Hazel.
Absolutely. Yeah, even us.
No, you can believe us.
Yes. But, yes, so we start ordering vitamins. We start taking maybe too many. And you can find, that's not that, I don't want to be down on vitamins because vitamins are very helpful.
Vitamins are important, and almost everybody probably needs a multivitamin supplement because it's highly unlikely that you're going to take the quantity of food in your older years that's going to give you the quantity of vitamins that you're going to need in your body. So that's one of the reasons. But you also have to be determining which kind of vitamin that you take and make sure that it's absorbable by the body. For example, you could get iron by eating a nail, Hazel.
Well, yeah, break my teeth too.
I know a good dentist.
Oh, okay.
But that's not very absorbable. So therefore, by eating the nail, yes, you get the iron, but you don't actually absorb it into your body, so therefore it does you no good.
Right.
So you have to make sure that the kind of vitamin that you get is very absorbable. And there are certain kinds of vitamins that are better than others. Check with your physician, check with your pharmacist, check with your geriatric care manager, because we have actually done some studies, and we've actually read some studies and have some studies on which ones are more absorbable ones. So yes, those are the three major problems that we're looking at in geriatric care management. And medication mismanagement is such a problem. I went to one lady's house and she had a little touch of loose stool, so she had 21 Imodium in her medicine set that she was going to take this week.
21?
Yes, 21. I counted them.
Ooh.
Now, as a nurse, you know what that's going to do.
Yes, well, yes, the opposite effect, and now we have a new problem.
And now we have a new problem.
For which I'm sure there is a medicine.
Oh, I'm sure there's an over-the-counter.
I'm sure, yeah.
So it's a compendium because they don't actually get things regulated. They actually go from one extreme to the other because of a lack of information and a lack of understanding about how the medications work. So it's always good to have a nurse in the background to be able to help you with things like that.
Well, and I think you touched on the other really important issue, and that is understanding the healthcare system. It is complex, and I predict it will become almost more complex. It's how do you even get an appointment? How do you say to the doctor what it is you are really needing, especially when physicians are burdened with productivity and time things. So they have 10 minutes in the office with you. Well, if you don't ask the right questions right away, you don't get to your question.
You know, the productivity issue is a problem. I went in with a client one time to a physician's office, and the physician looked at my list of 10 items that we needed to review, and she said,
I have time for 3?
I have time for 3. Which 3? And I'm going, oh my. Now I have to prioritize big time because I'm only going to have time for 3. And how soon can I make an appointment to come back?
Yeah.
Ah, Medicare is going to be looking at it if I come back the next day, even though my problems weren't answered. And here I am, very articulate, and I can talk really fast because I'm from New York.
There you go.
But yet I can only get 3 problems. And what happens to the older person that is going, well, the other day I had just finished combing my hair, and I noticed that, well, there's half of your 10 minutes.
Yes. And besides, usually what I found with most patients, most of us, we don't get to our real problem first.
Yes.
We either tell a
Circle
story, or we circle, or we talk about a diffuse or small symptom before we get to the real thing we're worried about. And if we're not careful when we go to the doctor's office, the doctor, well-meaning, I love physicians, but the doctor hears the first thing.
Yes.
And then goes off on this segue.
You almost have to go like you do a newspaper article. You probably took journalism somewhere back in your bachelor's degree like I did, somewhere back there. And they always tell you, you have to prioritize, because most people when they read a newspaper are going to read the first half of the column, maybe. So if you don't get it in the first 1 or 2 paragraphs, the main point that you want to make on your newspaper column, you're probably going to lose half of the audience, if not more.
So what I'd love to tell everybody out there, make sure if you have a loved one that you are supporting within the healthcare system, 1, go with them. I know. I know you're going to take time off work and the boss might not be happy. You got to go with them, because how many times have you brought mother home and said, what did the doctor say? And she goes,
nothing.
Nothing.
Or their medicine changes. Oh, no, everything's fine.
And the second thing is, always go with a list. And your list should probably have 3 to 5 things on. And perhaps you can even talk with the assistant who puts you in the back of the room first. She might be able to answer 1 or 2 of those questions.
That's a good possibility.
Which leaves you the 3 for your doctor.
Your major 3, right. Save your major 3. I had a little lady that would, well, my mother would go into a pulmonologist, end-stage COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. My mother was dying of lung problems. She'd go into the pulmonologist and she would say, how are you doing, Mrs. Reinhart? Fine, fine. I said, Mother, tell the doctor you can't breathe. You can't breathe, Mrs. Reinhart?
Yeah.
But they don't want to talk, they don't want to complain.
Well, I have a question here for you, and that is, how does our family prepare for what is called the golden years? I mean, I had a patient, she said, whoever called these the golden years? There's nothing golden about them. She says, they are the pewter years. Oh, pew. Now, I think there is some gold on the edge, and maybe they're rusty. Maybe we're slowing down. But is there anything that we can plan on to do to help with our families that are in this situation?
That's a very good question. And one of the things that geriatric care managers do also, and family members can do this to a certain extent if they are knowledgeable about this, is prepare for disabilities. For example, we moved from a house that we had in Calamasa, a 3-story house.
Yeah, not good.
Not good. Not
Even
good.
when you're our young age, don't move to a house. If you're going to move again and you're of our vintage, I suggest one level.
One level.
Wide hallways.
Took me a long time to find a single level house that had the amenities that we needed, etc. And we weren't that fussy, but we wanted a single level house. We found a lovely single level house with a bank on it at about a 45-degree angle behind us.
Sure, you can crawl up that puppy.
Yeah, right. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I could probably fall down that puppy, but
yeah.
definitely not the place that you want. You want an easy maintenance, one-level house so that you can move into it, and as you said, accessible, so that if you do have to end up in a wheelchair, etc., walkers, that you can get down through the hallway, get into the bathroom doors, make sure that those doors are wide enough. This is the time when we're our age to widen the doors.
That's right.
Not wait until you're 80 and then you find out that you can't get your walker in through that bathroom. So even if you have an older house, start doing a little of the remodeling now so that you can be ahead of time on this. The other thing that is extremely important is have all of your legal papers set up right. And that is to make sure that you have chosen who you want to have help you with finances when you're not able to do it, and also help you with health care decisions.
Yes.
Because to leave those decisions until it's too late or you're not able, you've had either a stroke or a car accident, even at our age, a car accident that has rendered you speechless, etc., who then can make your health care decisions for you? Perhaps you don't want your sister to.
Yeah,
perhaps you don't want your husband to. Perhaps you want somebody who's more knowledgeable and less emotionally attached. I've chosen a good friend of mine who's an RN because I know that she will make appropriate health care decisions, and I've told her what I want to do ahead of time, and I've written them out. So we have what we call advanced health care directives. Well, Carolyn, I also have gotten into a financial person that can make financial decisions for us.
Well, Carolyn, I think you've given us a lot of things to talk about and think about in our families, and even though we don't think we're old, life does sneak up on everyone. I want you to think of those things. Think of where your parents are living. Think of their advanced directives. Think of the kind of things you can do now to make a difference in your life. What kind of things are going to matter to you? Can you talk with your children? Have you set up time to talk with your children or family or friends? Because the reality is that all of us will need to do some things for ourselves, for our parents, for those people that we really love. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please come to our website for additional information on geriatric care managers. You can find me at Hazel at smartlifestyle-tv.com, and they'll be on the screen for you. In the meantime, fill your life with joy. Enjoy every moment of it. Be safe, be strong, be healthy, and I will see you next time on Kitchen Conversation.